Perfect. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Matt McCann. I am part of the sales team here at ShiftCare. And for those of you who are unaware of what ShiftCare is, we're a platform designed very specifically for the senior care and disability space, providing some structure and some automation around operations like scheduling, timekeeping, care notes, as well as staff and client documentation. Me and my team, we meet with hundreds of senior care providers every single month, and we consistently get a lot of questions about how to stay compliant, how to stay competitive, and how to position yourself in the market as a provider. So I just want to emphasize, this is actually the first of many webinars that we're hosting, addressing challenges that go far beyond what just a software platform can do for you. So if you enjoy this webinar today, there's definitely going to be more coming. Now, what we're really proud to bring to you today is a joint webinar between us and Sarah Barker, the owner of Senior Care Sales Solutions. What we're looking to discuss is how kind of personalizing care for your clients can lead to more visibility, better reputation, and a stronger referral network, which ultimately leads to more clients, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about finding more clients in general. Additionally, we're going to kind of tie technology and ShiftCare into some of what we're about to talk about. So with me today, I have one of our very own, Connor Langlois. Connor is an account executive here at ShiftCare. He is calling in from Los Angeles, California, as well as I had mentioned before, we have Sarah Barker, the owner of Senior Care Sales Solutions. She is a total expert in the space, redefining how senior care professionals serve their referral partners and families through her Senior Care Sales Solutions Academy and Connect Forward training. We're talking senior care specific coaching around marketing, business development, sales, and much more. So we are super honored to have her. Thank you both of you for joining. Real quick, just a couple of housekeeping items. Please keep your audio and video switched off throughout the webinar. We're going to have a Q&A session, but the chat is monitored. Please use the Q&A button for any questions. And then the session is going to be recorded, and we're going to send out follow-up to everyone that registered for the webinar as well. As far as our agenda for the next little bit here, I'm going to tap in Connor here in a moment to lead us in our discussion. We're just going to have a discussion around some of these topics that I was just talking about. And then we're going to do a feature spotlight and jump into the software and just kind of tie it to a lot of our conversation. Then we'll wrap up into a Q&A. So without further ado, Connor, how we doing?
Doing good, Matt. Thanks for the introduction. A little background on me before we jump in here. I've been working in home care technology for the last 3 years, helping providers streamline their back-end operations. And one of the first lessons I learned is that technology is just a small piece in a much larger puzzle of running a successful agency. So, as Matt mentioned, we meet with a lot of providers, and one of the most frequently asked questions is, how do I find more clients? Well, I'd love to tell you, you're going to walk away with a one-sentence answer that's going to get you 40 more clients in 1 week. I think we all know home care is not that simple. So we did a little bit of research, looking around and asking around, and as Margot in the chat can attest, Sarah is, an absolute expert in this space, helping providers answer this question one-on-one. And Sarah, we're excited to have you on here today to help, provide some background on this question and how people can start answering this question. So I'm sure we're all a little bit curious, what first drew you to the home care industry and what inspired you to start Home Care Sales Solutions?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm very grateful to be here today, you guys, especially considering I'm the first one. I appreciate the opportunity and I love what you guys are doing. So, what drew me into senior care? Well, the truth is, it happened by accident. I have a military background and then I got out. And like you hear a lot about veterans, there's this loss of purpose, right? They go through this identity crisis. I had gotten into sales when I got out. I had sold advertising, I sold payroll. I just couldn't really get excited about it. And then I was studying to be an investment banking representative when a colleague of mine, an estate planning attorney, forwarded me this job opportunity in home care. I had no idea what it was, but through his relationship, he provided an introduction. They took a chance on me. And so I fell into senior care. But over time, I've definitely developed a big passion for it, right? I feel strongly that we have a responsibility to care for our nation's elders. And home care is so much more than simply putting bodies in someone's home or, providing jobs for the caregivers and they're going into the home. What we do in home care is big. And I feel like our industry needs to start talking about it in a big way, which is in home care, we are extending people's lives. We are saving marriages. We are preserving relationships amongst multiple siblings. We are opening people's. Oh, and we're also alleviating the burden on the healthcare system by lowering readmissions. So, what we do is so important. So, as I said, the truth is I fell in, but I've developed a huge passion about what we do over the years. And I think that we need to be more focused on true, authentic collaboration with other types of care providers on the continuum of care. And when we can move out of a transactional mindset and then start visualizing how we're one piece of this this advisory team around our seniors or adults with disabilities, that's where we establish these deep connections that turn into repeat referrals.
Awesome. Yeah, that's some incredible background. And what really stood out to me there is passion, relationship, and responsibility. I feel like three things that you so closely align with that is so tied to this industry. So no surprise that you've been very successful working with agencies. Um, and in my conversations with other agencies, one of the biggest challenges they face is increasing their visibility and reputation within their communities, especially if they're, let's say, a newer agency or have a new territory and they're really kind of just trying to get their foot in the door and demonstrate who they are. So for those agencies, what would be your top three recommendations for building a strong local reputation and attracting new clients?
Great question. A very loaded question, right? Because there's so
Yeah.
many pieces to that. So I think the first thing that we need to clarify is that our industry tends to call the person who's responsible for generating hours, for generating revenue, right? A marketer. Now, whether it's the owner doing that role or the agency has a marketer in that role, we have to clarify that there's marketing, there's business development, and there's sales. And those are all different skill sets. Okay. And that's what makes the role of the person responsible for generating clients unique, is that the best ones can do all three of those successfully. Because you can have someone that's really good at building relationships, right? Sourcing the opportunity, the business development side. But if they're doing their own consultations and they cannot close, now we have a problem. So now, if it's a newer agency and the owner is doing the marketing, right? The business development, it is so crucial that they carve out dedicated, disciplined time every week. Okay. It cannot be a scattered approach where one week they're really hot and heavy out there, but then all of a sudden they don't go back out into the market for a month, right? Because now we have an issue where there's no consistency. It takes consistency to build relationships, regardless of the type of relationship. Okay. So I like to use the analogy of dating because it is the most applicable one. You can't go on a date with somebody one time, have a good time, and then think that we're automatically going to move to the full-on commitment phase. It doesn't work that way. So it's really important to have those consistent interactions where we are getting to know each other. We get to know the referral source account, but we have to get to know the people in the account. It is not the brick and mortar building that sends referrals. It's the people in those buildings. So if it's the owner carving out that dedicated time, right? Getting organized in the territory, not zigzagging all over the place, but also pre-qualifying referral source accounts to make sure that we're actually prioritizing appropriately who we focus on. Now, if they have a marketer, a business developer, I know we call them marketers, but they are business developers. It is really important to do all of those things, right? Organize the territory. I like to say we divide it into sectors, and then we populate each sector with the accounts because it's just based on the address. We have to assign a relationship status because that's going to define the frequency at which we see them, we date them. It's also going to define the conversations, the questions that we ask. So it's really important that the owner then carve out a weekly 1-hour meeting, right, in which they're going over the referral sources. They're I track a lot of various types of KPIs because we're looking for trends. We have to make sure that we're working the pipeline. And these conversations are a combination of ongoing education, strategy support, and a whole lot of accountability, all under the mindset of asking ourselves all the time, was this an advancement or was it a continuation? If it was an advancement in the relationship, how are we going to advance further, take more ground, right? To get those referrals, increase the volume of referrals. But if it was a continuation, we're not going to get disheartened. What we have to do is what we call in the military an AAR, an after action review. Why did I not accomplish my mission, my objective, my intention for this interaction? And how can I do it differently next time? Okay, so that's all, the business development to the tactical stuff. Now, as far as increasing visibility, some things that people don't often think about, and there's no reason to delay in doing these things because it's incredibly affordable and it's incredibly effective. Start your own podcast. Sign up for StreamYard. It's like $49 a month. It connects to your social media. It connects to your business pages. So now you're increasing your reach, but it's also a phenomenal business development tool because now you can reach out to your high value target referral sources in your market and invite them to be a guest on your podcast. You can give them the option. Do you want an interview format? And if so, send me the questions. Make it easy on yourself if you're working for a home care agency. So those questions serve as a framework for the discussion. Or you can let the referral source provide an educational presentation. They can share a slide deck and then you have room for Q&A. But this will drastically increase your visibility in a short amount of time, right? Increase reach, but you're providing value in addition to the value that we get so stuck on thinking about. The only way we can provide value to our referral sources is by providing good care to their patients or their clients, right? But how else can we add value to them and highlight them? So then, of course, right, after you do it, you download it, you upload it to your YouTube channel that you establish. Again, very affordable, very easy. Then you give them the recording, the YouTube link for them to share. You're also tagging them in your social media post, right? So you're saying, hey, I'm bringing value to people by providing education. I'm highlighting other people. And when you tag them, their network will see you. So do you guys see how it just keeps compounding, right? The visibility. And it also elevates the home care agency owner or the home care business developer to being an authority in the industry. So that's the podcast. Another basic thing that is so easy, but I find people don't think about. It's okay if you don't come from the healthcare industry and you've decided to start a home care agency. You still know people in your community. So we know, right? This is what I teach. there's three buckets of referral sources. You have your community resources, your Alzheimer's Association, your Parkinson's Association, ALS Foundation, like whatever the community resources are. You have your healthcare ecosystem bucket. So that's your hospitals, your skilled nursing facilities, home health, hospice, senior living communities, right? All of the healthcare type of accounts. And then we have our legal financial bucket, estate and trust attorneys, trust litigators, CPAs, financial planners, wealth managers, corporate trust officers, private fiduciaries, right? And I lump aging life care managers into the legal financial bucket because they're often getting business from legal financial. So to increase visibility in the most expedited fashion, reach out to the people that you know, whether they're in the healthcare industry or not, and start telling people what you need help with. People in general want to help other people, but they cannot help us unless we tell them what we need help with. So decide that maybe it's on reach out to the people that you have relationships with and you let them know. I have recently launched a home care agency, and here's what I would also suggest. Say caregiving agency. A lot of people do not understand what's home care. But if you say caregiving agency, now it's specific. They get what you're saying. So reach out to the people that you know and you let them know. I am looking to connect with social workers at skilled nursing facilities. I am looking to connect with hospice companies, with home health companies. I'm looking to connect with, right, the whole list of our target referral sources. I'm looking to connect with wealth managers. I'm looking to connect with estate planning attorneys. Who would you recommend? You'll be very surprised at how willing people are able to think about people they know that have those types of jobs and how willing they are to provide an introduction for you. Okay, so the fastest way to expedite our relationships, our network, is to leverage the people that we already know. Now, then we can start to become creative. And I did this. So then once a month, you can send out your top 10 most wanted list. I like to use humor, right? So it's kind of funny, right? My top 10 most wanted list. So when I started, I knew some people, but at the beginning of every month, I would send an email to those that I had a relationship with already, but it was very specific accounts on there. I'm struggling to establish a relationship with these following 10 accounts or people, right? Sometimes it was individuals. I would be so grateful that if you know them or somebody in those accounts, I'd be grateful if you'd be willing to connect me, right? We're being efficient and we're expediting our reach through leveraging people we already know. I think I had another one too, Connor, but I can't remember what it was that I was going to say now. Own podcast. Okay. So utilizing social media, I really only became hyper focused on leveraging my social media platforms about 4 years ago now. So use the filters on LinkedIn. So go to your connections, press on connections, up will pop, okay, first degree connection. You can select the city and then you press on all filters. And then to the right-hand side will pop up all these different filters. So you can select different industries. You can also select certain companies, right? So say you want to really make a footprint with Brookdale or Aviana on the hospice side, you would select Aviana. But when you do that, right, and then down at the bottom, you just press, I can't remember if it says report or what it says, but you press the button that generates. And so up will pop all of these people that you're connected with that you've probably forgotten that you're connected with. Or if you click a first degree connection and second degree, it'll pop up people that could be high value targets for you that are connected to people you know. So then you look at it and you just simply, you reach out and you ask for help. You send them a message and say, I am very interested in establishing a relationship with you because I want to learn more about what you do. And I would like to have a conversation to discuss potential ways we can collaborate to serve our nation's elders. But here's the key with that. You release attachment to the outcome there, right? Because some people may not get back to you. And if you're too attached to the outcome of them responding to your LinkedIn message or your emails, then you start to feel demoralized, which is then going to impact the way that you show up in your meetings or your drop-offs. Okay. But what we're doing with the strategies that I'm telling you right now, searching out people and sending messages, right? That's just one small part of starting to establish the relationships. So then also with the social media, I already mentioned StreamYard and starting your own podcast. StreamYard will connect directly to your LinkedIn and directly to your Facebook, directly to your YouTube. So when you are doing a podcast with someone, it's going to be streaming live to your entire network as well as theirs. Okay. All right. Any questions about this so far?
Not yet. I mean, there was so much good content in there, Sarah, and I think one of the huge takeaways was, we don't exist in a vacuum and our clients don't exist in a vacuum, right? It's not just about getting directly in touch with that client, but building a network around them, around yourself, leaning into your community. And I think that's just such a great reminder and approach to kind of building this care around your clients versus just thinking that you're the only thing that's going to help them in this world, right? And that leads in really nicely to, I think, our next question, which we were already touching upon, which was technology, right? You'd mentioned carving out time to do this on a weekly basis versus getting stuck in the day to day is going to be how you continue um, to build new relationships and build new referral sources and gain more clients. What are some technologies that you think are transforming home care in that they're giving these agency owners like more access to time or maybe higher quality output when it comes to these connections and content they're producing?
Chat GPT is huge, right? If we're going for creating efficiencies, especially if you are the owner doing the marketer and you're very limited in the time that you have to focus on business development, right? You could say, all right, go to Chat GPT and put in there, give me 10 estate and trust attorneys in Phoenix. Chat GPT in less than 2 minutes, I think it's even faster actually, will pop up. It'll just spit out, right? 10 law firms. So now that's our starting point. And then you still have to do the work. Like, I don't care what technologies come around, we are still going to have to do some work. So you then
Absolutely.
have to go and just go to Google and pull up that law firm, all the 10 law firms. And what's really exciting is that, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, each of those law firms will have all of the attorneys listed on the website with a bio on them, as well as an email address and a telephone number. So now we've got our information to be able to reach out to them. And so real quick, because I'm a little bit off technology, but this is super important. Use the technology to get the contacts, but our approach still needs to be very much the WIFT. So maybe everybody's heard of the term WIFM, what's in it for me? And you can be the most altruistic person in the world. We're human. We all have a WIFM, right? Especially when we're talking about business. But when we're reaching out to gain that first meeting and to establish relationships, we very much have to be focused on the WIFT. What's in it for them? Okay. Why do you want a meeting with them? Well, because you need to add them as a resource to your network. So that way, if you have clients that might need to do some proper legal planning to avoid probate, right, which is very important because it can be costly, stressful, time consuming, and it can delay the grieving process for families if their loved one didn't do proper planning. So that's just an example of like a WIFT. So using the Chat GPT to identify referral source targets, high value referral source targets in your market, but also to craft messaging. Now, so let's say you need to send a follow-up email. We're just going to stay on the estate and trust attorney example here. You had your first meeting, but you're really confused about the best way to follow up. Well, put into Chat GPT, had a meeting with so-and-so. Here are the things that we talked about, bullet points, craft follow-up email. It'll spit it out. But I urge you, don't just send that. Take what it spit out and make it your own. Okay, so everybody's heard of writer's block, right? So I like ChatGPT mostly for the fact that it can get people past that writer's block. It will give you something to work with that you can then craft into your own tone, right? Your own style. And it just saves a ton of time instead of sitting there in front of your email, spending an hour trying to craft a follow-up email. So Chat GPT, also for educational content, right? So to create slide decks, maybe you secure a really high value lunch and learn where you're going to be presenting to a wealth management firm and you want to present to them on the latest elder abuse scams. Chat GPT, what are the latest elder abuse scams? And can you give me some statistics around it? Take the information and then create your presentation out of it. So presentation, social media content. But again, with all of this, you have to put your own voice in it, right? Because if it's too obvious that you used tech to create it for you, it won't resonate as well compared to if you put your own voice into it. So ChatGPT, lots of various uses for that. I've already talked about StreamYard and starting your own podcast. There is a company called Home Care Quote, and I have known them for years now. Home Care Quote was founded by a home care agency owner, and they founded Home Care Quote when COVID came about. And what it is a software. It's like a digital intake tool. But as you're doing the intake and you're learning about the situation that the client has, you're learning about the family, you're putting this information into the software. And what ends up happening is it spits out this incredibly professional PDF that has charts showing the level of need of this person. It's also spitting out recommendations on other resources that are needed based on the information that you're learning from the intake. So then you take that very professional PDF. So when you go and you do the living room assessment, you have a document that you're pointing to and you're saying it helps in the sales process, in the closing process. Because what it also does is based on the true needs, it's spitting out a quote, hence Home Care Quote, about what the hourly cost is going to be for the care. Because if somebody is a high need case, a lot of hands-on care, right? It's going to take a more skilled care professional. So we're probably going to have to pay them more to take the case. So really what it's doing is it's creating a situation where caregivers are getting paid based on the level of work that they're having to do, versus if it's just a pure companionship case and through the Home Care Quote software, right, it will reflect in the hourly quote that comes out. So it's a tool for the business developer or the owner when they're sitting there talking to the family or the prospective client. You use it to justify why the cost of the care is what it is. But the cool thing is it's also tracking all of this data, all these analytics that can be used to drive the focus of training for caregivers. It's also really impressive, especially if I'm working with legal financial, because it's part of the follow-up process. Thank you so much for the referral. Here's the report. It's professional. Okay, we're professionalizing our industry. It's also a reassessment tool. So we know that people decline. We're all declining every day, right? But it's really important to reassess because it is rare that a client or the family is going to proactively reach out to you and say, I would love to increase hours. Unfortunately, usually what happens is there's some sort of episode and now we're increasing hours. But if we can systematically reassess by using this tool and continuously, showcase the report, we're able to justify our professional recommendation of the increase to hours because it's very simple. The way that we ensure ongoing safety and quality of life is by increasing the number of hours to the care plan. Adjusting the task, but the consumer has a hard time understanding why we're charging what we're charging, or why we're saying that we want to recommend an increase to the hours in the care plan. But if we have something documented, right, now they can visually see it. And if you think about all kinds of other industries, right, this is how they operate. And so what I love about Home Care Quote is that they're, again, I'm being repetitive now, but we are professionalizing the process.
Definitely. And that's actually the perfect segue to go into kind of what we're going to talk about next, as far as our technology and the software that we provide. And you led me well there. As far as the quoting goes, that's something that we've heard a lot from our customers, as far as wanting to be able to streamline that process to come across as the professional agency that they are, right? And it raises your brand, whether it's you're trying to, connect with a referral source, or whether it's just a client. The space is extremely competitive, and talking to a client or the family of a client, and ultimately, winning their business and winning their care, it comes down to coming across as professional as possible. In addition to that, along with using technology that's going to help with that intake process, a lot of what we talk to our clients about is how they can leverage the technology in a way to really make a family or a client feel comfortable going with their agency, right? So being able to show the tools that their agency is using in order for their staff members, their caregivers, and their nurses to go into the home and know exactly what they're doing, when it comes to the tasks that need to be completed, taking good notes as far as everything that happened during the shift and the status of the client, so that then our care managers can go in and make adjustments to a care plan, or whatever else needs to be done. So with that said, I am going to pivot into our little demonstration here, where we'll talk a little bit about where ShiftCare comes into play. So you should be able to see on my screen here, in the background, we've got our administrative side. So, the scheduling, the timekeeping, the staff and client documentation, the invoicing, the quotes. You'll see we recently released a quotes tool. We don't quite have enough time to go into that. I kind of wanted to focus on the care component, and what a lot of our clients, when they're looking to get a referral source or bring in a new client, what they're going to show that particular client as far as they're the best fit for, in a competitive situation where they're speaking to the family, and it's being able to provide a high level of care and consistent care. So what the caregivers are going to experience is, this is our mobile app here. You'll see I've got my staff member here is Mr. Jerry Seinfeld, and my client is Mr. Joey Tribbiani. I'm a huge fan of 90s sitcoms, as you can tell. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the schedule. So our caregivers are going to be able to see, they're going to be able to go in a couple different directions, but they'll click on their schedule, and then they'll be able to go ahead and click on a particular shift. And so first and foremost, directions. So we have a map here. If I click on this map, it's going to populate Google Maps, and it's going to give me directions as a caregiver on where I'm going, and how I'm going to get to this particular location, rather than needing to call a client and ask them for directions, or be on the phone with the owner of the agency who sent them out to provide the care. They can just access it on their phone. In addition to that, we've got the time, the day. There's no confusion there. I can also click on the client. And so when I click on the client, I'm not going in blind. As an owner, I'm not sending out 1,000 text messages. The information is here, right? So there's a lockbox code. I can also see if the client was recently discharged from the hospital. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? If they have dementia, how do they like information presented to them? So as a caregiver, this is all information that I'm going to have before I enter the home. It's going to allow me to provide a higher level of care. I can access things like care plans, feeding plans. That type of information is literally at my fingertips. And that's what, as an agency that's trying to win the business, I want my clients to know that their family members are going to be taken care of, right? In addition to that, if you look a little further down, we have clock in, big blue button here, clock in and clock out. We have electronic visit verification. So staff members will not be able to clock in or out of shifts unless they're actually there. They need to be at the location, at the address to clock in or out. Really making sure that no one's essentially taking advantage of the ability to not be there and provide that consistent care. In addition to that, we also have notifications that will remind the staff members when their shifts are coming up, as well as notifications for your administrative team when a staff member hasn't clocked in yet. So maybe it's 5-10 minutes past the shift and they haven't clocked in yet. I've worked with a couple agencies where the biggest piece for them was they just want to know before it actually happens. So especially with some of the care that might be provided like after business hours, the owner of the business, it says a lot about their brand when they already know that the caregiver has not showed up 10 minutes into the shift so that they can call that client and they can take action. But in regard to those caregivers really knowing what they're doing, we've got our details as well as we can click on tasks. And when we see tasks, we have a list of ADLs here that either we're going to check off the ones that we did, or these are the ones that we need to be doing. At the bottom here, you'll see it's bolded. It says to add care notes. That's not going to allow the caregiver to clock out until they've acknowledged that they've done their care notes. Just another little check and balance and play here that ultimately allows for a higher level of care, because those care notes are going to play a huge role in having the most up-to-date status on the client. And so when we go ahead and we click on progress down here, we'll be able to see I hit the little add button in the bottom and I go to progress notes and I have a little template here. So I have a template that can be filled out, like what did they do today? What was the client's behavior like? What medications did they take? Did you feed the client? You're allowed to create these templates here in ShiftCare. And we have an awesome customer success team that helps people get set up, but they'll be able to create these different templates. In addition to that, we actually have a forms functionality. So you'll see where it says shift related forms here. If I click on that, the same way that you kind of saw before, you can actually customize forms in ShiftCare and associate them with shifts. And you'll see once it loads here, I'm able to have a specific form that gets filled out for this particular shift, what meals the person had. It's every agency is a little different in what they're tracking. And that's what ShiftCare is really going to allow them to be able to do. So that's just one way. I mean, if we had more time, I'd go into every single way, but all of this information funnels back to our administrative side. It's really the way that our platform can be leveraged. Yes, there's ways that you can save time and money. That's a shoo-in for sure. If you're not using any kind of technology right now to save a little time so that you can go out into the field and make these connections with referrals and find more clients and work on these different parts of the business, you need some technology in place. You definitely do. But just raising that level and ultimately being able to go out and get more clients by showing them exactly the level of care you're going to be able to provide because you have the technology in place to do it is so important as well.
Matt, I love how clean this looks. And when you talk about showing the client, showing the prospective client, showing your referral sources. So I would encourage you owners or any business developers that are on this call, do not be afraid to have that be part of the conversation with your referral sources, or when you're doing that living room assessment. Share with them the different platforms that you use that are very much a part of the delivery of care. It could be a huge differentiator for you, especially when you're competing for a case, and then also adding on to this. So I could see, Matt, with ShiftCare here, where it sounds to me like the agency can create the form however they want. So I would encourage you, if you are not talking about people's psychosocial well-being, and integrating people's psychosocial well-being into the plan of care, you need to start doing that today, because it's not just about the ADL tasks. It's about what makes this person human, this person that we have the opportunity to provide care for. Is there certain music that needs to be being played? Are there certain activities that client used to like to do, but it's difficult for them to do, but we can meet them halfway. So for example, with cooking, maybe the client can't full on cook anymore, but they could still pour stuff from the measuring cup. And so the care professional can participate in that with the client. So I love it. It looks super clean.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and then just to add to that, Sarah, what you were mentioning with like most agency owners, right? There's the three pieces: marketing, business development, and sales. And then the elephant in the room is the operations, right? Which usually sits a little bit to the side. And our goal, like you said, is really to loop this into each of those roles so they can leverage tools they're already using actively to do their job more effectively. So yeah, I really appreciated that feedback, and I think at this point, maybe we can transition into the Q&A, but I just wanted to point out, what you're talking about, Sarah, here, this insight is super incredible, coming from someone with a track record of increasing client acquisition for agencies all over the country. And my understanding, Sarah, is when you work with agencies one-on-one, it's a lot more detailed. You go into the way they specifically operate, right? So I just want to encourage everyone to reach out to Sarah with questions during the Q&A right now, but then additionally follow up, and you'll get way more insight working with Sarah directly, which Matt and I have been thankful to have some conversations with Sarah one-on-one, which has been awesome.
Thank you so much, Connor. All right. So do you guys want me to look at, we have a comment here. Attend quite a bit of similar webinars. I must say this is by far one of the most informative and value-added webinars. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I'm looking at the Q&A right now, and just because I see this one in here, do family members have access to the notes inputted by the caregiver? That is a great question. So separate to what you saw today, as far as the administrative side of ShiftCare, as well as the mobile app that you saw on the screen, we do have a third component. It's actually called ShiftCare Connect, and it is a client or family portal where they can see the notes. So just another element of being able to communicate, and something that you can offer to your clients when ultimately looking to bring them aboard.
I would also say, depending on the type of referral partner that you're working with, so let's say you received a referral from a care manager, a geriatric care manager, which now, we call them aging life care managers. Don't be afraid to find out if they want access to that family room to be able to, in real time, see the care notes as well. That would be a big differentiator for you in your market if you proactively offered that as an option to those types of referral sources. Same thing with the private fiduciary.
Absolutely. Cool. Just taking a look at some more questions here. Must be able to monitor by the agency prior. Oh, how can we connect with ShiftCare and with Sarah? Great question. We're going to be sending out some resources after that will have information. We'll have links to things and emails and information for everyone. If anyone who attended this wants to connect with us, we'll definitely be able to do that. Just checking out a couple more. We only have a few minutes left. Sarah, what is one of the biggest gaps in professionalism in the home healthcare industry as you see it today? Nice question, Erin.
What is one of the biggest gaps that I see? Well, we've already touched on being able to justify why the cost is the cost. Like, let's make no mistake about it. It's expensive, right? And so if you're the marketer or the owner and you are doing the assessment, or maybe it comes up on the intake, are you prepared to justify why you charge what you charge? And part of making that justification is to be able to talk about how is it that you invest in your caregivers, right? That increases a high level of care delivery, but also what sort of tech do you use? That's a big part of your delivery of care. What are, special, operational protocols that you have in place, such as 24/7 on call. You'll always get a live human being that answers the phone. So I think that's a big gap in professional, in the professionalizing our industry is having more confidence in speaking and defending why the cost is what the cost is. The other thing is follow up. For the love of all things sacred, if you are doing business development, or if you get a referral, or if you've done an intake and it hasn't converted to assessment, or you do an assessment and it hasn't converted, we always have to be following up, right? That shows attentiveness. That shows a level of professionalism, not only with working the pipeline. A lot of agencies are leaving revenue on the table because they're not working the pipeline. Okay, so put a system in place for that. But also in relationship development, if you have a good interaction with someone, you need to follow up with a professional email or text. If you receive a referral from someone, the very first thing you need to be doing is updating the referral source in a professional email or text, right? Whatever their preferred mode of communication is. And then when you make contact and you do an effective intake, right, you need to circle back and update the referral source. When you do an assessment, you need to circle back and update the referral source. You need to update them after the first shift. You need to update them after 7 days. You need to update them after 30 days. All right. Right. So that's quality assurance measures that we're putting in place. But also from a business development perspective, it is the easiest way to have repeat communication and drive more referrals to come, because it shows a level of professionalism that many agencies are not deploying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a great reminder, Sarah, that, these prospective clients and referral sources, they have options, right? And what we need to do, when as agency owners, need to focus on being the most consistent, right? Following up the quickest. And that's like such an easy strategy, like you said. It's the most important and the one that's at your fingertips every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so put a system in place for it, right? Or, make sure that if you have a marketer, a business developer, right, that you're holding them accountable to doing those things. Okay. It's just an agency that follows up. That is one of their biggest differentiators, is the fact that they follow up. Okay.
Definitely. All right.
Absolutely.
So we're at our time. Do we have time for one more question?
I'm good on time.
You're good on time. Let's do one more question before we wrap it up. We'll get back to everyone and their questions. Don't worry, but we just don't have time for all of them. We'll take one last question. What is a good rule of thumb to apply when it comes to maintaining relationships with previous clients' families? I see this as a common boasting point in businesses, but curious as to how important it actually is.
So to confirm, we're talking about you've had a client on service, the client passes away, but we still have contact information for the family. And then do we stay connected with the family? Is that the question?
I believe that would be the question.
Okay.
Around referral from that family, essentially.
Right. Word of mouth referrals are the best referrals, right? Because there's already an establishment of trust, because it's word of mouth. It's coming from somebody who is an ambassador for us, really. So what I like to do, if you have a client that's been on service that passes away, take the time. Agencies would produce a lot more revenue. They would advance a lot more quickly if they would slow down and be methodical, be intentional, be thoughtful. Thoughtfulness gets us so far, right? Because we're talking about relationship development. So what I would do, if you have a client that's passed away, make sure you send a heartfelt card to the family. Have everybody in the office sign it and send it to the family. And then also, depending on where that referral came from, send a sympathy card to the referral source. If it's a care manager, if it's a legal financial professional, right? So put a system in place to make sure that it's just a standard operating procedure for your agency that you do this. Now, as far as staying in touch with the family, right, you should have their contact information in your system. So they should be receiving at least some sort of monthly newsletter or monthly educational blog, so you're continuing to drip on them. But when we talk about being authentic in real relationships, I don't see any reason why you couldn't text if it's the adult daughter, and even after the client's passed, right? Let's say it's 3 months. check in and simply ask that daughter how she's doing, right? Or if there was a well spouse, check in. Mrs. Jones, I just wanted to check on you and see how you're doing. Is there anything that you need? Okay. It's completely acceptable to do that. And I encourage you to do that because it's the right thing to do.
It is. At the end of the day, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. Awesome. Well, that wraps it up for us here. Thank you so much for everyone that attended today, for the questions, for the participation. Thank you to Connor for jumping on. Huge thank you to Sarah Barker, everyone, Senior Care Sales Solutions. Thank you so much for jumping on. We'll send out some follow-ups. This was recorded, so we'll send out the recording for anyone who potentially missed it. If you got friends that you want to watch it, we'll be sending that out as well. And yeah, looking forward, look out for some more webinars. We're looking forward to seeing everyone on the next one. Have a good one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.